Please be advised this week's episode of Residue will contain discussions about child abuse, child neglect, and animal neglect. There are also mentions of suicide. Please listen with caution. Hello, my name is Chrissy Champagne. You are listening to Residue, a true crime podcast dedicated to keeping you paranoid. This week's episode is a really sad and hard one to listen to and to talk about. So we'll get right into it. We are going to be discussing the tragic story of Erin Maxwell. What I am about to read to you comes directly from the New York State Child Protective Services Manual, CPS. The law established a CPS in each county in New York. Each CPS is required to investigate child abuse and maltreatment reports to protect children under 18 years old from further abuse or maltreatment, and to provide rehabilitative services to children, parents, and other family members involved. We believe in accountability for action and results. We believe children and adults have the right to be safe and to have permanent families and lasting relationships. We approach our work with a sense of urgency and persistence, recognizing and respecting a child and family's sense of time. We believe that high-performing supervisors and caseworkers are key to building and sustaining an effective child welfare system. Most recently in central New York, we have heard two stories, tragic stories of young children who were overlooked, who slipped through the cracks, who had visits from CPS in their homes, and yet tragedy occurs and no one is to blame. Ashton DeGonzak was a sixth grader at Grant Middle School in Syracuse, New York. Ashton was found unconscious in his home on East Division Street in Syracuse, New York. He was then taken to a hospital where he died several hours later, according to the doctor, from an apparent drug overdose. The doctors had told his great-aunt, Vicky Homer, that they found cocaine, fentanyl, and cannabis in Ashton's system. That part of the story is horrific in its own way to just hear that. But you have to know that before this happened to Ashton, he had found a dead body in this same home. This 11-year-old boy found a dead body in his home, and he still wasn't removed from that home. Ashton's great-uncle, Robert DeGonzak, said to the newspapers, "You would think that Ashton finding a dead body in that home would be enough to get him out of there, or at least get him into court to see what a judge would think. But no, nothing happened." Robert told CNY Central that Ashton's caseworker repeatedly assured him that they were on top of this situation. But now, Onondaga County Executive Ryan McMahon is placing the blame for Ashton's death squarely on the shoulders of two CPS workers in that county. This was not a systematic issue. This was not a cost issue whatsoever, but two employees that performed horrifically. This is what Ryan McMahon told reporters. It is important that the community knows that the caseworker who made such horrific decisions and did such a horrific job, that work is being looked at so that we know if we have to go back to families and open up cases again. A spokesperson for the county executive's office, Justin Sales, he confirmed that other investigations are now being reopened. Investigations involving these two specific workers that were involved in these children's lives. So these are now all under review again. News of this new review that is in progress comes amid the search for answers in the death of another child, 5-year-old Nefertiti Harris. Onondaga County Executive Ryan McMahon again has asked 2 retired family court judges to review the caseworkers' assignments, and both of these judges have accepted the request to come out of retirement to go over all these records. Those 2 judges are Martha Mulroy and Martha Walsh. Ryan McMahon confirmed that county CPS workers were involved with Nefertiti Harris's family for years. In fact, CPS last visit to Nefertiti's home was 2 days before police say that Latasha Mott, her mother, killed her. Neffy's life began being born with cocaine in her system and being taken from her mother at the hospital. And then just 5 short years later, the little girl would be found dead and her mother would be arrested. These 2 cases are still ongoing in Syracuse, New York, so I didn't want to focus solely on those right now. I wanted to give you some examples of what is still going on today in 2024, because today we're going to be talking about a little girl, an 11-year-old little girl named Erin Maxwell. In 2008, after the horrific murder of an 11-year-old child, Philip Church, the county administrator, he stated, "Just from the content of the reports, it appears that the Department of Social Services did what they were supposed to do within the limits of their authority." So let's talk about that. What are the limits of their authority? And that's the key sentence, even from back in 2008. Within the limits of their authority. So if they aren't there to access the dangers and save these children, then what are they there for? This very system is put in place so that these children can be protected, or so that families can make changes. And that's not to say that there are not social workers out there that really care about their job and they really go out of their way to make sure these children are taken care of. I am just talking about the very few who clearly either did not care enough or, as we heard earlier, didn't have any authority to do anything. Erin Maxwell was born to her mother, Ryan Andress, and her father, Lindsay Maxwell. Ryan has stated that she met Erin's father, Lindsay, in a coffee shop in Nevada. Erin's mother was only 17 when she had her, and she decided to let Erin go live with Lindsay. She wasn't going to continue a relationship with Lindsay anymore, and she just didn't think that she was fit to be a mother. Matt Mulcahy of WSTM TV spoke with Ryan Andress, and he asked her, why did you leave Erin at such a young age? Did you ever see Erin again after you let her go at age 2? And Erin's mother responded, "I was getting closer and closer to a breaking point emotionally. My temper was growing shorter. I was frustrated with everything in life. I didn't feel that was the type of mental or emotional state that a child should grow up with. I was wondering how she was doing. I was wondering what type of person she was becoming. I had a lot of hopes and prayers going out, but I thought I had made the right decision and that she had a better chance at happiness." At age 11, Erin was living in Palermo, New York, with her father, Lindsay, her stepmother, Lynn, and her stepbrother, Alan Jones. The family was living in a home that they were actually buying from a guy named Frank Pitcher. For 8 years, Frank had held a mortgage for the home, and the Maxwells were paying him $500 a month in the hopes of soon buying the home from him. Frank Pitcher adamantly states that he was not a landlord, he did not go to the house very often, if ever. He did not know what kind of state that home was in. Erin Maxwell was forced to live in filth. Teachers, classmates, friends all said that Erin's clothes smelled of urine constantly, and you could smell the cat urine on her because there were over 100 cats in the Maxwell home. Teachers reported that they would often find Erin digging through the trash cans in the lunchroom, and some teachers even offered to give assistance to the Maxwells. They would give Lindsay some information on food stamps, or they would send Erin home with different clothes. But Lindsay, he just would not accept the help, and he would always make Erin take off her new clothes, and she would always go back to school in her urine-soaked clothes. Now, obviously, people in the community are really taking notice of this. Even just driving past the home, it's a disgrace. I mean, it's the kind of home, if you're driving on a country road and you come across it, it almost looks like it's about to fall down. And, the grass is overgrown. You can just tell that it's either disgusting inside or nobody must live there anymore. So, of course, family and friends, they're all now calling the Department of Social Services, and they are trying to get someone to go over to the house and do a welfare check on Erin. The Maxwell family was investigated 3 times. So they were investigated in 2003, 2004, and 2006. And this was by the DSS, Department of Social Services. So I have specific notes on why they were asked to go. We'll start with the first allegation that was in July 2003. I do just want to note that this report was actually done on Channel 5 WTVH. It was done by reporter Joe Rhodes. This first report was made by a neighbor named Jackie Sivers, and Jackie called the DSS to complain, and nothing was done about this. So I want to just give you a quote as to something Jackie said after she learned about what happened to Erin. She said, "The Department of Social Services can say all day long that they did everything by the book, and maybe they did, but the book is wrong if that's the case." Allegations in 2003 are that Erin is hit with a belt, Erin is put to bed without supper, and she is isolated in her room. There's also allegations that, of course, the home is filthy. And DSS goes in and they oppose all these findings. They write in their reports in 2003 that the family is told to remove geese in the home. There are geese in their home. Erin needs to bathe daily, not twice a week. You need to fix this bad odor in your home. And then the report states, meets minimal standards. Erin has breakfast and dinner. I mean, minimal standards are not good enough. Being able to meet minimal standards, it's not good. And also, being told that you have to at least meet minimal standards. I mean, I'm so sorry. This case angers me so much. So it is now November 2004, and more complaints are made to DSS. And these complaints consist of Erin's clothes smelling of cat urine. This is affecting her peer groups. This is affecting other teachers and classmates. Classmates are giving Erin clothes and food. And so DSS gets the report again. They go in November of 2004, and this is what their report says. Quote, report unfounded. Child's clothes smell, but it doesn't bother the child. Stop and think about that one for a minute. If you live in a feces and cat urine infested home for your entire life, and you have hundreds of cats just all over the place, do you think that you're going to be able to smell that the way that other people smell that? No. But, as long as the child's happy with it, I guess the report's unfounded. Also stated, 1 chicken still inside of the home, 20 cats, 3 birds, 2 snakes, 3 dogs. March of 2006, reports are filed again. This time because a classmate found out that Erin was bitten by a rat inside of her home. The report and the allegations that were filed this time state that Erin was bitten by a rat. They state rats are in the home, 30 cats in home, and again, the child's clothes smell like urine. Again, DSS goes to investigate and again reports unfounded. They do know that Erin's bedroom has a screen door with a latch on the outside, but her dad said she can unlatch it if she needs to get out. The parents deny that she's ever bitten by a rat, and they're also offered food stamps again, and they refuse. The report ends with child doing well in school. So, since Erin is doing well in school, reports are unfounded. And this is the thing, too, is if your home life is so awful to this extent, maybe school was her only escape. And maybe she thrived in school because she couldn't thrive at home. Why is that not looked at? Back in 2008, Megan Eaton of Channel 5 News spoke with the DSS Commissioner, Frances Lanigan. And you have to hear what Frances Lanigan had to say about these unfounded reports. She states, she, meaning Erin, was attending school. She seemed to be very interactive with the workers and not afraid to speak up. She revealed nothing that would give us further pause. Just think about that statement for a little bit. This little 11-year-old girl who is being neglected and possibly abused didn't speak up to the people that came into the home to help her? Do you wonder why maybe she didn't speak up? It's not her job to speak up. Everyone else in the whole town spoke up. There were 3 different reports filed by different people in that community to go in there and help this girl. And you cannot tell me that you walk into that house and you do not see something wrong. But I mean, Erin didn't say anything, so reports unfounded. The DSS commissioner went on to say in this statement that, yes, the home was filthy on the first 2 visits. But the parents of Erin Maxwell, Lynn and Lindsay Maxwell, they did make the suggested improvements in 2003 and 2006. Most of the trash on the porch was removed. The kitchen was cleaner, there were no more flies, and some of the dishes were done. She goes on to say that if the house looked like it did in August of 2008, then they would have removed Erin. She says this, and I quote, "It was not the same circumstances as it was in 2006. The DSS commissioner had the backs of her workers, and she went on to say in a press conference, "I do feel very confident that there was nothing that our workers could have done that would have changed the course of events." After hearing something like that happened back in 2008, you do have to now just give props to Ryan McMahon for, in 2024, really stepping up and opening some old cases, opening some current cases, and asking 2 other judges, retired judges, to get back in the game to help figure this out. On the evening of August 29th, 2008, Alan Jones, who was age 27, was the only one home with Erin Maxwell. Alan placed a phone call to his mother, Lynn, and Lynn said that she answered the phone, and Alan said, "There's been an accident and the EMTs are here. I went in to give Erin her dinner and she wasn't breathing very well." I'm going to read to you the police report that was taken after the police arrived on the scene. It was about 5:40 p.m. and they were inside of the home. And Trooper Finkel asked Alan what happened when you found your sister. Alan Jones responds, "I was making her dinner and I went into her bedroom and I found her hanging." The officer asks if he can show him where Erin was hanging, and Alan walks him into the bedroom. The trooper says, "Where was she hanging from?" And Alan Jones just points to a screw hanging out of the molding in the window. And he says, "In that window." The trooper asks Alan, "Why was she only in a t-shirt? Was she going to bed?" And Alan responds, "It was her bedtime." The trooper says, "It's only 5:30 p.m. And Alan tells him that sometimes Erin was so bad that she had to go to bed early. This is taken directly from the police report. Alan Jones was asked to describe the events leading up to his discovering of his stepsister Erin with a rope around her neck. Jones states the following. His mother and stepfather had left the residence between 5 o'clock and 5:30 p.m. At that time, Alan said he was playing an internet computer game called Guild Wars on his laptop in the kitchen, and Erin was in her bedroom getting ready for bed. Prior to their leaving, his mother told him to make dinner for Erin. Alan said he did not get up right away to make Erin's dinner, and that about 10 minutes after his mother and stepfather left, Erin called out to him from her bedroom for him to make her dinner. He said he got up, warmed up some SpaghettiOs with a hot dog cut up inside of it, put it in the microwave, and brought it to Erin's bedroom. Alan said that when he got to the bedroom, he observed Erin standing at the front of her bed, facing her dresser, and that he called to her to have her come get her food. Alan said he just usually handed the food to Erin over the half-bedroom door. He said Erin did not respond, so he entered the room and approached her. Alan said that as he got closer to his sister, he saw she had a green rope around her neck, with the rope extended upward behind her, and at the end of the rope was attached to a screw. Alan states that he did not notice the rope until he had entered the room and got closer to Erin. When he got close to her, he said he shook Erin but got no response. He said he observed that the back of Erin's legs were against the foot of her bed and feet were suspended a couple of inches above the floor. He advised Erin's body was mostly straight, possibly leaning backward slightly. Her arms were straight down along her sides, her head was bent forward, and she was hanging from the rope. Alan said that Erin was not breathing and she appeared to be unconscious, so he took the rope off of the screw in the window frame and laid her down on the bed. He exited the room to contact 911, and from there, he was told to perform CPR. They walked him through the CPR until the rescue personnel arrived, and then they took over. Alan also starts to give the police some suggestions as to what could have possibly happened to Erin, and one of those suggestions was that maybe Erin was swinging the rope around and the screw got lodged onto the rope and then in turn wrapped around Erin's neck, and that is what killed her. During this interrogation, Alan is asked about his use of the internet, and specifically if he had ever used the internet to do online dating or to meet people. He denies this, and he said he would never do that because those kind of relationships never work out. He's also questioned about pornography on his computer, and he does admit that he watches pornography, but only adult pornography and anime. And he says that he has never viewed child pornography. Later, he is questioned again, and this time he is asked about his use of the internet again for dating. And this time he admits that he does use it for dating and that he had a boyfriend. He actually refers to this boyfriend as his fiance, and this fiance was named Chris, and he lived in Nova Scotia. So he admits that he did meet Chris online. And when he was questioned about why he had originally told the police that he did not participate in online dating, he said that he did not believe in such relationships. And Alan said, "No, I never said that. I never said that I don't online date." Alan is also questioned about his lack of emotion. He is showing no emotion at all. And when they ask him why, he says, "Everyone dies." And then he says, "I don't show emotion because I do not look at death the way that Christians do." How do Christians look at death? I don't know, but do you look at death like a human being who feels upset and sad that his baby stepsister died on your watch? The date of the autopsy report was August 30th, 2008. And the manner of death was listed as homicide. The cause of death was asphyxia, with the contributing factor being sexual trauma. The comments written by the chief medical examiner were as follows. The descendant was purportedly found hanging by a synthetic rope from a screw in a wood molding surrounding a window. The circumstances are suspicious and the stories inconsistent. Medical resuscitation was provided and she died 10 hours later. Petechiae were noted in the eyes and oral mucosa and on the heart. Injuries were noted on the lower lip, on the external and internal surfaces. Circular contusions were noted on extremities. Large abrasions were noted in the vagina, as well as an abrasion on the cervix. Alan Jones was given a polygraph test on August 30th, 2008, and the examination proved that deception was indicated. Stepbrother Alan Jones was charged with second-degree murder. Lindsay and Lynn Maxwell were charged with 4 counts each of endangering the welfare of their late daughter by twice locking her in her room, which would have prevented escape in an emergency, and creating an unsanitary living environment. The trial was said to be very disturbing. Most of the testimony was very disturbing to the jurors, and probably the worst, most compelling testimony came from one of the firefighters that arrived on the scene on August 29th. And this woman's name was Deborah Dennery, and she was the Palermo Fire Department president. So Dennery testified that when she walked into the porch of the Maxwell's home, she had to, quote, gasp for air because of the strong odor of cat urine. She said that their carpets were, quote, squishy, as well as garbage, clutter, and feces surrounding every room. Dennery recalls that as she is standing there trying to save this little girl's life, all she can notice is that the little girl's bedding was just absolutely disgusting. Reporter Jim Kenyon wrote that Dennery says she suffered hundreds of insect bites. She vomited 3 times after Erin was taken away. She said she had to wash the feces off of her feet and came down with pneumonia shortly afterwards. She says that this experience will forever haunt her. Lynn Maxwell's daughter-in-law, Rebecca Belrad, she also testified in court, and she told a story about how she had been at a barbecue for the family, and Erin wasn't at the barbecue. Erin was actually locked in her bedroom during this barbecue, but Rebecca had gone inside to use the bathroom, and she saw Erin locked in her room, and she said she had noticed an overpowering odor in the house. She also says she didn't do anything. So family is seeing this happening, and they're just letting it be. Now it's time for Alan's trial, and his defense attorney, John Sarando, says our ultimate goal is to have these charges dismissed. So the appellate court is not disputing if he murdered her. They're trying to prove that Alan Jones acted with depraved indifference to human life when he killed Erin. A person has depraved indifference to human life when that person has an utter disregard for the value of human life, a willingness to act not because he or she means to cause grievous harm, but because he or she simply does not care whether or not grievous harm will result. Did he brutally beat or torture her for a prolonged period of time? Was she vulnerable? Judge Walter Hafner Jr. sentenced Alan Jones to 25 years to life. But in 2012, in a unanimous decision, the State Supreme Court Appellate Division in Rochester concluded that there was insufficient evidence to support the finding that Alan Jones acted with depraved indifference to human life. With his reduced sentence, in 2018, Alan Jones made parole and was released from behind bars after serving only 10 years for the death of his 11-year-old stepsister. Jones is now a free man, as well as his parents, Lynn and Lindsay Maxwell, all living their lives free. Oswego County District Attorney Gregory Oakes spent years, along with other local leaders, they spent years trying to keep Jones in prison. They would write letters to the parole board and just beg for them to keep Alan Jones locked up. Gregory Oakes was stated as saying, "This state still does not adequately protect children or hold those who harm them accountable." Speaking of Erin, he says, "She hasn't been forgotten. There are people that care, and even though the adults in her life who were supposed to care for her in her life mistreated her, abused her, and neglected her, this community cares about her tremendously, and there are people who carry on her memory and what to do right in her name." As neighbors, as friends, as community members, we need to be vigilant and keep an eye on these kids. If we have concern, speak up. A group called Erin's Angels was made and dedicated to the memory of Erin. On their website at erinangels.com, it states their mission: to mobilize the community, individuals, and resources to provide food for kids in need. And that's the thing, is that the community did step up. The teachers, the neighbors, the friends, the classmates, everyone tried to step up. And as I said earlier in this episode, community member Jackie Sivers, when she said that if this is the book they're going by, then that book is wrong. And she's right, and she said it perfectly. If this isn't working, then this book needs to be rewritten. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Residue. If you enjoyed the show, please share with your friends or visit me on Instagram at Residue Podcast, Facebook at Residue, a true crime podcast, and you can also email me at residuepodcast@gmail.com. I hope to see you all again next week, and in the meantime, stay safe and stay paranoid.